Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Today we're going to be covering working with the Novell client on your Windows computer and starting the process of creating users. We'll be spending next week on different ways of creating users as well, users, groups, roles, and those kinds of things, but we just want to get you an introduction today. There are a couple of things that we would do on your client, first of all, so we can get the machines ready to do what we want them to do. Right now, when we installed Windows, we installed it without a password just to sort of help us to automate the login process. We're going to modify that just a little bit. In fact, we are going to put a password on our local user account. We still want our machine to log in automatically, though. So I'll show you the steps of how to make a specific account log in automatically when you turn on your Windows computers. When we install the Novell client, we're going to have a different logon screen to go to the Novell server, and we just don't want to have to worry about also logging on to our local computer at the same time. It's just kind of confusing. So the first thing we want to do is actually set a password for our local user. I can go to Start and then Control Panel, and I'm going to switch my view from Category View to Small Icon View. I should have user accounts underneath here, under Control Panel, way down the bottom. And in my case, I only have one account on here. If you have multiple accounts, that's fine. Just make sure that you choose one that is an administrator or part of the administrators group. Since I don't have a password for Paul already, I'm going to create a password for the account Paul. Click on Create Password. And I'm going to type in a new password. We've been keeping LTC as our password for everything so far, so just to keep it consistent, we'll do the same thing here. Type in just a secret little hint. Like the password is LTC. That should give you enough clue if you forget. And we're going to create the password, a subtle hint. Okay, so now that we have this account, once we turn on the computer, it might prompt us to log in or whatever. We're going to make a change here. Now, because we didn't set up a password to begin with, it's not a typical way that we're going to be changing it, so just sort of follow along. I need to go to the command prompt for this, so I go to Start and then Command Prompt, or CMD, to get to the command prompt. And once I get there, I want to use Control user passwords 2. Now this is a really good tool to know of anyways, or be aware of, and just understand how it works. Often if I don't use this for a long time, I forget what the exact one is, then I do a Google search and it pops right up. It's like, oh yeah, Control user passwords 2. What this does is, even if an account has a password on it, you sort of have a default or an automatic way of logging into computers. Home users love this. You know, having people, a lot of people, when they turn on their computer, just hate it when they have icons on the screen. They have to click a name and hit a password, or even just having to click a name and then enter or whatever. They just want to come to the desktop. They just want to be done with it. And this is the process to do that. So it's Control user passwords 2. When you hit enter, it should pop up this little user accounts application. Now, because we did not have a password on our user account right from the beginning, most people do, because right during the installation it says it's recommended that you put a password in here right now. This is normally checked. We do, in fact, need to check this where it says users must enter a username and password to use this computer. And the reason we need to check this is so that we can uncheck it. If we don't uncheck it, then this doesn't work. So we actually have to check it and then uncheck it, and then we can click OK. Now once I do that, it's going to bring up this, okay, you said you will want to automatically log on. Who do you want to automatically log on as? So this could be whatever user account you have set up on there. I only have one user account, and so I want to use the user account Paul. It is an administrator account, so it's going to give me everything that I need. It is asking me now for the password for the user account Paul. Just entering it, I remembered that it was LTC. And it does want you to confirm that information as well. LTC, LTC. And I click OK. Now every time you start Windows, it's going to automatically start up Windows with that account, not bring up the login screen, not bring up the welcome screen, and not prompt for a password. It's going to bring you right to the desktop. So it's just going to sort of automate that process. Again, this is really valuable that you probably will be using this with other people's computers as well. Okay, the next step then is to actually install the client software. So there's a couple ways of doing this. The easiest way is just sort of cheating a little bit because this is a virtual machine. We have ways of getting files onto the virtual machine pretty easily. Otherwise, we think of this as an isolated machine. We could download it from somewhere, we could email it or whatever. What I'm going to do is not minimize this, but to exit full screen mode and then resize the screen so it's sort of off the side a little bit. And then I go look for my Novell data files that you copied at the beginning of the semester. So there's this perplexed look like, where did I put those? I put mine under classes and then Novell and then Novell class files. I had given you this one, Novell Client 2 Service Pack 1 for Windows. I've just downloaded this latest one, but since you all have the Service Pack 1, we'll just go ahead and use that one. Everybody find your file? Okay. Once you do, find it, click it, and drag it over to your desktop. And in the virtual world, because you have a virtual VMware tools installed, it allows that capability. You can't typically do that dragging it from one physical computer to another computer. So it's nice to be able to do this. Let me go back to full screen mode. Okay, if you can't drag and drop, if you're trying to drag it over there and it doesn't work, then check to make sure that VMware tools are installed. You can do that by going to VM. And if it says reinstall, that means it's installed. But if it just says install, that means that you probably should do that. Okay, now that everybody has that, go ahead and double click on the client. And it's a self-extracting zip file, which is going to run the setup file after that. So I'm going to unzip it. And I click OK, and then it automatically runs setup. I want to use the language that Windows is using right now. And I just click Next. And then we have our license agreement. Kind of scroll through and read through that. And then I accept the Novell license, client license agreement. You can catch up. I'm just going to choose an Express installation. Custom just gives you one choice and we don't need to change it. So I'm going to choose Express and click Install. Would you like to install this device software? It's actually the Novell network client, so it doesn't prompt you in the future. I want to say that I always trust software from Novell Inc. if it's signed that way. And click Install. And this will just take a minute to install. And when it's all done installing, go ahead and click the reboot. And that's the installation of the client. Is everybody this far, or are we still waiting on people rebooting? Okay.
Okay, now that we have the client installed, if you could look down the notification tray, you have the little arrow up here. You can click on that, and it's going to show that you now have a little N, and that means that you have the Novell client installed. What's nice about this is that there's a lot of features under here that we'll be using. Because we do use this semi-often, it's nice to have it on the notification area and keep it there, not sort of hidden. You can change that by clicking the Customize link underneath here. When you click on the Customize link, it gives you the options of what things are shown when. Scrolling down, I scroll onto the Novell Client System Tray menu, and it only shows when there's a notification. So if something's wrong, it's going to notify you. You do the down arrow and you choose Show Icon and Notifications, which means this is going to always show the icon. If you just do notifications for some systems, that's really the only time you need to pop up for it. This is an actual icon that we interact with. Showing how we interact with it, we can right-click on it, and we see a menu, a whole list of things that we can work off of. And we'll be going through quite a few of these in just a little bit, but we will start with the very top one, with the Novell login. When I have the Novell login, it's asking for our username and password. We only have one username on our account right now, and that's admin. So I type in admin, and our password is LTC. Now we do need to add some more information to this because admin could really mean a couple different people depending on which tree or which directory I'm referring to. If we were on the same network right now, which we're not because we're all NATed, but if we're all in the Rooms network, we would actually have, as many of you admins, and we could log on to any one of them that we wanted to. So we have to designate, well, which tree do I want to log on to? If we click on the trees link, we could type in the name, but whenever there's a link, I like using links because then I don't have to worry about having typos. It also allows me to see exactly what I can see. And you should see your tree. Again, if we are all in one network, not NATing separate from each other, we would be able to see all the trees. Choose your tree and click OK. Now we also want to choose our context. This will be important because we'll have to change this throughout. So as we log in as different people, we need to change the context of where they are. That's because within Novell, you can have multiple usernames that are the same, and if they're in different contexts or different containers. Last week we talked about organizational units. That's what they're talking about. So I could have a Bob in human resources, and I could have a Bob in accounting. Both of their usernames would be Bob. Depending on which context I have set, that's determining of who they're logging in as. Now, just because you can do it doesn't mean you should do it. I still highly recommend that you should always have unique usernames across your whole organization. And as we create usernames, we'll be doing that. So in our context, our admin account, if I click on context, is found in the tree, in the organization that we created. If you remember way back when we installed the server, it said, where do you want to create this admin account? And we said, we want to create an organization named your last name, named Benfield. If in fact it was a different place and it was, semi deep down, we can double click on it and we can see, the containers underneath there. So double click, let's see, here's Packers and so on. I do want to in fact choose the organization Benfield and I click OK. So it's going to log on to that tree, and then this user, admin user, is in this context. I click OK again. Now it's going to authenticate me and actually log me in, and it's going to run a very quick, small login script. I'm not going to get to login scripts right now. We will be taking a week and writing login scripts. Here it is right now. I will be taking login scripts and creating them ourselves. It does, however, just gives us some basic drive mappings, which is the primary purpose of login scripts. We're not going to be using those much at all today. I'm just going to take a quick glance at them. If I go to Start and then Computer, These are the drive mappings. It made an E drive for me and an E's drive for me. This is my system volume on, my system directory on my sys volume, and this is the public directory on my sys volume as well. I can double click on them and I can see all the files in there. Click back on computer and double click on here and see all the files in here. What's also nice is that since I'm actually logged on now as a server, as a Novell client onto the server, if I click on network, I have to wait. It actually could show a couple more on here. Let me see. It showed what I wanted, but it'll usually show both. So just give it one more chance here. Well, it's not showing it, but normally when you look on the computer, it's going to show the Benfield server -W, and that's where it's emulating the Windows file share. We don't need to use that one anymore. Remember when we clicked on that, it's going to make us then log on to the server using the server's IP address, /username. Well, now I can just double click right on the server and it's bringing me into the volumes. Because I'm admin, I have access to everything. I click on sys, I see all the directories and all the files. I click on data, I see all the directories and all the files. I click on home and I see everything underneath here as well. Those are some ones we played with before. So I can see everything. So that shows me how I can use and log on to the server using the Novell client. Looking at some of the other options under the menu, I can right click on the N and I have Novell connections. This tells me who I am. So I'm logged in as admin and I'm connected to this server. And specifically I'm using connection 28. If I want to disconnect from the server, if I want to still use my computer but not be connected to that server anymore, I could just simply detach. And it says, do you wish to log out of E directory? Yes, I do. And then it disconnects me. So I'm no longer connected to that server. To log back in, right click, log in. Because it's assuming you're the same person that you logged in before, it doesn't show you the advanced area, all the stuff underneath. And I don't really need it. I just click OK because it remembered all this information underneath here. And I just click OK. And it logs me back onto the server. Yes, it remembers you when you log off the computer. And so like when Windows logs off, it just remembers. There's an actual setting that you can turn off. Right now it's by default on. Remember the last person logged on. You know, most people will use the same computer, so yes, you want to keep it remembering that. If it's a public place and you have people changing it all the time, you know, it's better to keep it clear. You know, you type in the username and the password. Okay, let's go through some of these other menu items here. If I right click on here, I have the Novell Map Network Drive. It's going to be very similar to the Windows Map Network Drive in a couple of regards. One is you choose your letter that you want. So I choose the letter. I want to choose K, or I want to choose S, or whatever it's going to be. You browse for your location. In this case, it brings me up to my server, Benfield server. Looks like a little file server on there. And then you can point it to something like data accounting. And then I click OK. And you can do the same thing over here. Then you have a couple options that are kind of the same. We have one that says check this to always map the drive when you start Windows. That's the same thing as reconnect at logon. So every time you start Windows, it would map this connection and it will map this connection. Things that are a little bit different are Novell has two extra checkboxes. The first is check to make the folder appear at the topmost level. If I had multiple subdirectories deep, such as data, students, IT students, and then home directories, and then your whatever, your username. If I mapped it to that location, if I don't check this checkbox, or if I use the Windows mapping, it's going to show the whole path. It's going to show that K. I click on the K drive, it's going to show this whole long path to get to that location. And unfortunately, the people can actually navigate back up that path, back up to the root of the actual volume. If I check this to appear as the topmost level, it's going to look like the root. So if I say K is the accounting directory, when I click on K, all you see is that's it. It's going to look like the root of a drive. So you can't navigate up no matter how low or how deep that is in the directory structure. It's just going to be right there. Most of the time when we do mappings, we're going to make them appear as root. We don't use this very often, map driving, either the Windows map driving or the Novell map driving, because it's machine specific. If I go to a different machine, I'm not going to get my mappings. Also, if somebody else uses my machine, they're still going to get my mappings because it's machine specific. We'll be using these same concepts when we write login scripts. Login scripts is where it's really beneficial so that when you log in, you get your login script no matter where you are logging in. Also, if somebody else logs in, they're not going to get your login script, and so everybody's going to get what is uniquely defined for them. We also have search drive mapping, so if I can make this a search drive, if I need to, it's going to do that as well. What that means, in fact, we already have one done here under computer, is the Z drive is marked as a search drive mapping. We can't see it here, but you can see it when you do the path statement. Anybody familiar with the path statement? If I run a command, if I run a DOS command or a command line command, I shouldn't say DOS because it's not DOS. If I do a command line command, it's going to look for that program in this directory where I currently am, users Paul. And then it's going to say, I can't find that command. Well, if I can't find it in my current directory, let me go down the path and look for it. So here's an example. C:\Windows System32 is the first location in the path. Such as if I use the command xcopy. Now it's not going to run because I don't have all the parameters in there, but it didn't say couldn't find the file name or password, not password, the file name. It can't find the program xcopy. It just said that you didn't do it properly. Where's xcopy found? Well, let's go look for it. Directory C:\. I'm going to look there for xcopy, and I'll look in all the subdirectories. And I'll just stop it right there. It found xcopy.exe in the Windows System32 directory. The reason it could get there is because of the path. If I did not have this in the path, it would not be able to run that xcopy command. Why do I want public in the path? Well, because the public folder also has applications in there that are specific to Novell that we can use. So even though such a command as, let's see, nlist is not in my current directory, I'm able to run nlist from anywhere. So even if I go to CD /, I can still run nlist. So it allows you to run any of those programs anywhere by adding it to the path statement. You can see it was added by right here. And that happened automatically at the login script by adding that path, that directory to the system path. That's what the only directory we need to do that with typically is the public directory. Everything else we can just go to and navigate and get the data. Okay, so that's the drive and drive mapping. The next option here is to disconnect the drive, network drive. So if I have a bunch of them that I made connections to, I could select whatever one I wanted to and say I select the network drive you want to disconnect and click OK. And now that drive is gone. So I only have a Z drive instead of a Z and an E. So those two sort of work together. Novell utilities. I have quite a few Novell utilities right here. The first one's a Novell copy. What would a Novell copy be? What a Novell copy does is take the copy command off of you and puts it on the server. If you're copying files from one directory to another on a server, that actually passes through your computer. When you use the copy command or you use Windows to copy something, it is taking that file, you're downloading, you're copying it to your computer, it's then processing and then reconnecting and going back to the server. If you think you're doing a very, very large file, gigabytes, terabytes worth of data, as it's copying it around, that's a lot of traffic and a lot of extra bandwidth it's taking. Why take it off the server? Well, you don't have to if you're using the N copy or use the Novell copy. You find this, it says select the file or folder to copy. You choose what you want, say accounting folder, and I click OK. Where do you want to put it? Oh, let's put it on the home volume. So we're going to move it. We're going to copy them. So we're going to copy it to there. And I'll just click OK. It says it doesn't exist there. The directory count does not exist in that home there. Do you want to create it? Yes, I do. And it's done. And yeah, there's nothing in it, I definitely admit. But if it was filled with all this data, the copying would have stayed on the server and just gone from drive to drive and never went across the network. Okay, another feature under Novell Utilities is the send message. Send message is kind of like a little instant messenger type thing. I'm the only person logged on to my own server right now, so it's not very much fun. But it says select a server to see a list of users. I only have one server, and it then shows I can see all the people that are logged on to my server. The asterisks are the ones that are actually connected, so send a message. This is great for administrators. You can actually send messages to all the users and say, the server will go down in 5 minutes, or whatever, or what's the lunch special today? And you can send it. Now I sent it, but at the same time, this just popped up. So on the receiving side of things, they get the message. And it says it's from admin, and this is the message. Down here's the full message if it got cut off. From admin, connection number 28, the server will go down in 5 minutes. And then you can reply to them and you say, okay, and then they get the message back, which is you getting the message back because you're sending it to yourself, of saying okay. So you can text back and forth that way. Usually not a real two-way communication thing. It is great for doing broadcast messages though. You select everybody on the list and you say, you know, hey, whatever, the server needs to go down in 5 minutes, or please save your files, or we're experiencing problems, or something. So it is an easy way to communicate across the board, across the servers. Next, utility. All of these next three ones, trustee rights, inherited rights, and object properties, all deal with file rights and object rights. We'll be covering that in another chapter, another week, when we get to that point. So we're not even going to talk about that right now, but you can do a lot of administration right from here. You don't have to use a lot of other tools. Right from here, the administrator can make changes. If you're a regular user, you can also access these, and you can see what you have. You just can't change anything. And then finally, down the bottom, we have salvage and purge. Let's go back to our example of going to our computer and network. And I wait. I choose just my server. I don't want to choose the one that looks like a Windows share. I want to choose my server, go to the data directory, data volume, and let's go into accounting. I'll make a new file, a budget file, and then I'll delete it. It's gone. Well, what you can do is right-click on the little N down here, go to Novell Utilities, go to Salvage, find where you were working. So you can go to the server. This is your server. If you had all your servers listed, you could go to any server you wanted. I know that my accounting folder is on my Benfield server under the data volume, and then clicking on accounting. When I click OK, it lists your salvageable files. What's really nice about this still, it tells you when it was deleted and by whom. If you want to salvage it, you click on it, and then you salvage the file. If I want to delete this, try it again. Did I just delete? What did I do? What did I do? There's my file. Okay. I don't know what I was doing. And it's like, no, that file doesn't exist. Really? I'm looking at it. No, hang on. Nope, wrong button. Go to Utilities, and I can purge the file as well. Go to your server, go to your data volume, go to your accounting directory, click OK. Here's your file or files. You can purge them all, or you can purge just the selected files, and then they're unrecoverable. So they are gone. So salvaging and purge. So those are some ways of working with utilities, Novell Utilities, to get there. We're looking at easier ways in just a little bit, but always remember that those are there. We're going to take a break right now, and when we come back, we'll finish up these tools and then get you into creating users. Okay, what we're going to do next is just finish up the utilities under the Novell icon. Those are what we have in the utilities section. We also have user administration for the individual. So right now I'm logged in as admin. I can look at the personal information, the work information, mailing information, even my login script and all that. These are all the things we'll be looking at in just a few minutes when we start creating a user, where all that stuff gets put in. Like if I click on personal information right now, it doesn't even have given name or my full name or any other name. If I clicked on here and went to administer like my work information, my title, my location, department, nothing's entered because I didn't enter it when I created the user. We'll see where we can enter that. Now, because I'm an administrator, I can change this. So I can edit this right here and right now, and it changes it. It's actually running it right back to eDirectory. If a normal user was logging in right now, they would be able to view this information, but not change it, even their own information. Now, you can change that. That's all customizable of what you can do and can't do and who can do it. But by default, the user can't even change that. A couple things that might be important under here be the Novell password administration. This is where the user does have the option to change their password. So they go under administration of myself, password administration, and then password, change the password. Taking a look at some other options. And group membership, it shows me what groups I'm part of. As administrator, I can change this, but as a normal user, it just shows me what groups I'm part of. And we'll be covering groups next week. Moving on down, I can browse to like a computer or network. It's sort of like Windows browsers. That's normally what people do. Configure the system tray icon. What happens when you do different things? We're just going to use the defaults for all of this. Update the Novell client. There is, in fact, an update available. We're not going to install it right now. I might just give it to you later on. And then there's the Novell client properties. It does bring up the prompt to the user account control. Do you want the following program to make changes to your computer? Yes, you do. And when you do, you have lots and lots and lots of tabs. We have the client, system login profile or profiles, Advanced login, we have a lot of different options underneath here, a lot. And, you know, a computer-only login, or let's see, what are some other ones down here? Forced Grace logon password change. We're going to talk about Grace logins today. Last logged on user specifies whether the last logged on user is displayed or not. I think that's what you were asking before. By default, it's on, and it's going to keep remembering the last person was. If you want it to change all the time, you just click that off. And you know, there's just all kinds of options beyond there. There's the update agent, which deals with automatic updates, so that it'll look for new clients automatically. We're not going to mess with that. We also have advanced menu options, which are, again, a whole slew of them. And then underneath advanced settings, we have more. So I don't know. They really like their options. Service locations, we don't really work with. Up on top, I was going to be playing with LDAP connections login. We actually don't even have LDAP running on our server yet. So we're going to wait until we have LDAP configured later on the semester if we get that far. But that does make logging in a little bit easier. And then name services. We're running DNS, SLP, and NCP. We're not running DHCP. So there's a lot of options under the Novell client, and I just want to show that real quickly. That's one place to get to all those things. You can get to many of those other items also by right-clicking, some of those items I should say, but just right-clicking. If I go to my network, and I go to my server, and I go to data, and let's go back under accounting, and I make another file, a new text document, budget 2, and we'll make another one called budget 3. If I delete these two files, again, it's saying, Windows says, are you sure you want to permanently delete these two files? That's because it thinks that they're going to go away. So right now my recycle bin is empty. If I say they go away, they're still not in the recycle bin. So Windows is just saying it's not going to the recycle bin, so therefore it must be permanently gone. Novell's still taking care of it. They are still salvageable. Since this is a data directory that I'm working with, I can click back on data so I can get to the accounting directory, right-click on it, and now I have all these extra ends on here. All these were added with the Novell client. The ones I want to look at first are the salvage and purge. So instead of having to go right-click, utilities, salvage, and then start searching for it in the directory structure, I can just go right to the directory that I'm working with, such as accounting, right-click, salvage the files. Here's my two files to salvage. I can salvage them all, or I just want to select budget 2 and salvage it. I go under accounting, and there's my budget 2. If I want to purge one of those files, I right-click on accounting, and I do purge files. And I can either purge all, or I can select the file and purge. So purge all. Are you sure you want to delete all these? They are no longer recoverable. Yes, I do want to purge those. So I salvaged budget 2, and I purged salvaged budget 2 and purged budget 3. If I right-click on East or whatever, I do have more trustee rights and inherited rights filters. Those deal with file attributes. No, I'm sorry, not attributes. File rights and file permissions, which we spend several weeks on, which is actually the most exciting part of the whole semester, because you get it's sort of that math and logic thing, like here's a scenario and how do you make it work, and oh, I can't do it that way because that's going to apply there. I want to stop this from happening here, and oh, I can do it this way, but this other way is more efficient, and you know, that's the fun part of working with rights. Come up with really bizarre, nonsensical situations of who can do what where, and then having it follow down but then stop. So that's a lot of fun. And then I do have the network copy and the Novell map directory, map network drive right here as well. So if I was in East and say, you know what, I really want a mapping to this East directory, I right-click on it and I do the map network drive. It's the exact same way as down here. It just sort of fills some of the stuff in for you already, like the whole path, which is kind of the hardest part to get there. Then you still have the options of checking all these and then mapping them. If you want to copy East data, say it's a huge accounting database or something, I can right-click here as well and do a network copy. And then again, it fills in the path. I just have to tell where it's going to. And I can browse for that. So a lot of the tools that are down here are also, the main ones that we're using are also going to be right in the right-click on the directory that we're working with. Any questions on the Novell client itself? Okay, next we're going to create users and start with that process. This is a very manual way. This is the you need to do all the steps way. We're going to be doing it a little bit differently next week, but it's really important that you understand what goes into it before we sort of move that process along a little bit differently. So we're going to go ahead and create some users. Since I'm working with the directory itself, eDirectory, I need to use the management tool. So the management tool I'm going to be using is iManager. I'm going to launch my web browser. I'm using Chrome. And my home page is my server. I click on Management Services on the left-hand side, and then I click on iManager. I click on iManager. Site security certificates not trusted. Well, I trust it, so I'm going to proceed anyway. It remembered my logins from last time. If you don't have this, because if you cleared your cache or whatever, your username is admin. Your password should be LTC. Your tree name can be your tree name or your IP address. And again, it needs to know your admin of what directory. You could be admin account of the Benfield tree or of the Smith tree or the Johnson tree or whatever. And again, if you don't want to type the tree name in, you can type in the IP address as well of your server, as long as it knows where it's getting that information from. I go ahead and log in, and it defaults to the roles and tasks screen. From here, I can do user management. It's almost like right-clicking on the Novell and going to Novell Utilities, and here I can, copy things or salvage things or purge things. But you have to sort of navigate around more after you run the utility, and that's sort of what you do here. Way down the bottom is users, and I can click Create User. And then it says enter the name, and then I need to enter the context. I need to put it somewhere. Well, right now I don't even have a reference of my context, so I'd have to browse for it and sort of think through it. I much prefer, on an ongoing daily basis, of using the second icon up on top, which is called View Objects. View Objects lets me see my tree. I want to know where things are. I want to see how they're all arranged and organized. Say underneath here, I have the PFL for Paul's Football League. I have the AFC and NFC, and the Packers should be under the NFC North, right? Is that where they are? Okay. So I'm going to create the Packers. I actually moved them under AFC West, and so I left them there. I'll just create another Packers over here. A new object. I'm going to create a new object, and it's going to be an organizational unit, and I'm going to call them the Packers. And then under the Packers, I could create offense and defense or whatever. Just for right now, though, I'll just stay with Packers. Just always keep track of which container you're working with. By the way, when we talk about containers or organizational units, that is known as your context. Your context is your location in the directory. So now I can create new users. I can click on New, and like I always do, you can create a new object, and then from the object, you can scroll down and choose User. Once you get a little bit more comfortable, you don't have to do all those steps. You just click New User. But don't forget that really all your objects are under Objects, so you can always get to anything if you choose Create an Object. Okay, I'm going to create a new user. And who do we want to create for the Packers? Anybody? Aaron Rodgers. So how if we name, now this is the username, how they're going to log in. So maybe A Rodgers, or we can type in Aaron Rodgers. A Rodgers is pretty good. And the first name is Aaron, and the last name is Rodgers. We're going to keep the password at LTC and retype the password of LTC. Next on down is the simple password. Remember, we had to go back in and change the admin simple password because we were not given the opportunity to create the simple password during the installation. Well, I said we don't have to worry about that anymore because when we create users, it's a simple checkbox, and now the simple password is also set. It just copies the password from up here and puts it down here. If you want it separate, if you want it to be a different password, feel free to change it. The next thing that's special is creating the home directory. When I click on home directory, it's automatically going to create a folder called A Rodgers. Now it's just going to ask you where do you want that to be created. I'm going to click the Browse button or the Object Selector button next to Volume, and I'm going to want to find my home volume. Now, this takes a little thinking. Okay, oh, it's hard to see from here. If I'm under PFL NFC North Packers, I'm definitely going to have to go up to find my server. And I need to go up, and I need to go up, and I need to go up. And I created my server, if you remember this or not, in your organization named your last name. So here's Benfield. And I click underneath there. Underneath my organization Benfield, I have all my volumes that are available to me, which is really nice because everything else is grayed out, so you can't choose the wrong item by mistake, but you can still see everything else in there. I'm going to choose the home volume. So it's going to, on the home volume, it's going to be creating a path for, or directory for A Rodgers. If I want to put in other information down here, I certainly can. For title, location, department, and so on, I can add that information. It's a little bit different here. You don't just type in here and start typing. You have to click the plus sign, and it brings up a dialog box. So what should Aaron Rodgers' title be? Quarterback would be an excellent title. Okay. Where could you find Aaron Rodgers? Like, where's his location? Okay, Green Bay. Sure. That's where you think of like room L23 or, you know, the Sheboygan office or third floor, you know, something that's descriptive in your organization for where you can find that user. The department, you usually think of sales or accounting or whatever. Maybe we might consider it an offense as a department. Telephone number. Does anybody have Aaron Rodgers' telephone number offhand? 555-1212. Yeah. And email address, aaron.rodgers@packers.com. No idea. All of these do, in fact, have multiple fields on them. So under title, I could add another title underneath here, such as center. So now under title, you can see it's under center and quarterback. If you see that something's wrong, or if you want to edit a field, you can select the one that you want to edit, like this. I spelled center wrong, so I go to the pencil, and lets me edit that field. So now I can edit this from center to center. If I say, oh no, that's wrong completely, then you make sure you select the right one, and then you hit the minus key, the button, and that will delete that entry. So you can have multiple items. These, by the way, are searchable. So this is why you kind of put this information out there. So if you want to look for the directory or the database and search for different things, you're able to, you know, sort of pool that together. The description, same thing. You can write anything you want about the description of the person. These are the things that are required are the username and last name and context. If you're using this view, the context is automatically filled in. If you're going the other way, you have to like do users and then enter your context. Those are the only three things that are required. You don't even require a password. These other nice things are nice, such as first name and a password. And then additionally, your home directory is valuable. What this does is create the directory, link a path to it or a link to it within eDirectory, and gives the user rights. So it does three things for you automatically. If you miss this step, you can do that and you can recreate it. You just have to do three separate steps. You have to create the directory, put the path under the user account, and then give them rights to it. So don't forget that step. Title, location, department can be used, often is not, but just for practice, you might as well start putting people's things in there just to practice with it. And you click OK. Now it says, boy, you created one person. It's kind of likely that you might be creating another person. So it gives you the option to repeat the task. So let's repeat the task. Do we have another user? Mike McCarthy. So I might do MCCARTHY. Is that right? Mike McCarthy. Password is LTC. Set the simple password. Create the home directory, point to the home volume. And then title of Mike McCarthy. Head coach. Location, we'll just stay with the theme of Green Bay. Yeah. Department would be coaching department, maybe. Telephone, email, Mike McCarthy at Packers.com. And I click OK. So I just created two people, Aaron Rodgers and Mike McCarthy. Why does it keep popping up there? Okay. Let's go ahead and log in as these people. So let's just minimize this window. Now, just remember that my web login is completely different than my Windows login to my server. It's using a different connection, different username and password. So right now I'm logged in as admin under iManager, but I can still log in as different people over here onto my server. So I'm going to right-click and go up to Novell Login, and I'm going to type in A. Rogers and type in LTC. But I do need to change my context. My context, Aaron Rodgers, does not exist under the Benfield organization. And this tends to be the little tricky part of selecting the right location. So if I click on context, then you find the PFL, the NFC, North, and then Packers. And then if I had other organizational units under there, you make sure you're choosing the right one where they are. By far, one of the most common mistakes when you can't log in as a user is because you're pointing to the wrong container. And you're going to say, well, I know that's the right container where they should be. Well, then go back and look at where you did create them. And we found that even this morning, that they should be in this container. So we're clicking here, absolutely right. But we go back to iManager and say, oh, wait a second, I put them in a different container. Well, it's not where they should be, it's where they are that you have to log on. So once you change your context, you can click OK. And now it says you're already logged in as admin. Are you sure you want to log in as Aaron Rodgers? Yes, I am. That'll then log you out as admin and then log you back in and run a new login script for Aaron Rodgers. How do I know that? Well, a couple ways. If I right-click on the Novell icon, I can go to Novell Connections, and it's showing me that I'm connected as A. Rogers onto my server. Now what I can also do is I can start seeing other things. I can go to Computer, and I can go to Network, and let me connect to my server. This is where drive mappings are convenient. We don't have any set up for Aaron Rodgers right now. We will later on, of seeing the different directories. Wait for the actual server to pop up, not the Windows file share one. And here's my actual server. So I click on the data volume, and all my data is gone. Must have gotten deleted somehow. That's okay, I can salvage it, right? No, where's my data? You don't have any rights. So even when you create a user, they don't have rights to anything except their home directory. I click on home, and all I see is Aaron Rodgers. In fact, I have a couple other people that I created already, and you don't see anybody else except your own directory, because that's all that you have rights to. So that's just sort of showing one part about Novell security is that, even when you create a user, they still don't have anything at all. You have to keep adding rights in order to have them access to anything. Let's go ahead and log in as Mike McCarthy. Since Mike McCarthy is in the same context or the same container or the same organizational unit as Aaron Rodgers, I didn't have to change that. So I can just go ahead and log in. And did I do that right? Oh, 2 M's. Mike McCarthy. And now I refresh the home screen, and it says that, well, this is all that I see is the Mike McCarthy directory. Being Mike McCarthy, I can go to the Novell tools over here. I can go to user administration and get my personal information. I can see that I'm Mike. If I want to see my work information, I can see that I'm the head coach of the Green Bay Packers, just in case he forgets. I can change my password. Let's see right here. I can change my password as a user, and so on. I can right-click on here under Mike McCarthy and look at my trustee rights. I can see what rights I have. And again, we'll talk all about this later on, about what these rights mean and all the different parts of the screen. If you do go in here, don't click on anything. Don't change anything. If you do, hit cancel. It could be very detrimental until you understand what's happening. So that's creating users. Questions or comments so far? We still have to get through the user management yet. So we're going to go through all the user settings of these accounts then. Now that we see how to create a user account, we want to see what we can do to administer the account. So to administer the accounts, I definitely want to use iManager again. And let's just use Aaron Rodgers here just as an example. I click on Aaron Rodgers, and it brings up all the object properties. Think of an object as like in a database. It's the entry in the database. These are all the fields in the database. And so it's just sort of populating all this information. It does have a lot of tabs and sub-tabs, and you can arrow left and right and up and down. That gets a little tedious, and you sort of lose things that way. I know that people have looked for things and have actually gotten things wrong on finals because they can't find it. Get in the habit of maximizing the screen. It's just going to be really important for you to see everything until you know exactly where it is. Just have it all shown to you. Okay, the first page is very, very much just like the user creation screen. First name, last name, full name. It does add the generation qualifier, so Aaron Rodgers IV, or Aaron Rodgers Sr., or Aaron Rodgers, the Duke of Lexington, or something. Middle initial, if you want to add that, you can. Other names, possibly a nickname, or maybe the official name that you have to put for first name is Robert, but he goes by Bob by everybody. title, location, all those are right off the regular screen, and we edit them the same way. If I want to add additional information, I click the plus sign. If I want to delete what's currently showing, I hit the delete. If I want to edit what's currently showing, I then hit the edit button. Unfortunately, there's no way of seeing all the information. You really do have to do drop downs for each of these to see what all the options are. I'm click on the environment sub-tab under general next. And what's really important here is this last part. Remember I talked about the user profile, the user account needs to know where the home directory is. That's because we use variables to talk about the home directory. This is where that variable is set. When I create the home directory with that little checkbox using create user, it creates the directory, populates this field, and then gives trustee rights to that folder. Again, you can do that. Just remember where this is. A lot of people, if they don't do it, they create the directory and give the person rights, but they forget where to put this in under the user's profile. So that's where you do it. Group membership. We'll be working with groups most likely next week. This is where we can add and remove people from groups. You might be part of the quarterbacks group or part of the special teams group or whatever it's going to be. Here's a login script. This is actually a part of the login script. There's actually many, many places that login scripts compile together to give you an effective login script that the person actually runs. Very infrequently will a user have their own personal login script, but this is where it is if you're looking for it. We can add postal addresses. So if in fact, the mailing department or human resources was using this as a database, they could keep track of where do you live, and then if it's different for your mailing, I want my mail sent to here. It's just a database. Put information in it. We're not going to deal with any of these other ones. Well, let me just glance at NMAS. NMAS is where we work with, remember the simple login? This is where we can change that password if we need to. Just a quick review for there. Same thing for NDS login. We can see that. There's other places for changing the password that we will actually be using. The last thing that we want to be talking about is restrictions. And this is where we have a lot of restrictions, a lot of capabilities of restrictions. So there's lots of sub-tabs in restrictions. There's password restrictions, login restrictions, time restrictions, address restrictions. Account balance doesn't really count. And then we have intruder lockout. Password restrictions. Are we going to allow the user to change the password? Most of the time we want them to. We're not going to set a password and say, no, you can't ever change it. This can be used on occasion for when we have a system that is looking for a specific username and password, so we hard-code it into the system. Mail systems are great for that way, so you configure the mail system. You then give it a specific username and a password for it to dump files to a folder or pull files from a folder or whatever. In that case, you don't want that password changing because then your system stops working. But most of the time we want people to change their password. Most of the time we want people to have a password. By default right now, Aaron Rodgers could say, reset my password, or I wanted to change my password to nothing. That whole password thing is just a pain logging in anyway. It's just a lot easier typing A. Rodgers and enter. Well, we do want to force the password. And then once you choose requiring a password, you get to choose the minimum password length. It defaults to 5 characters, and that's not a bad length. Some people require 6, some 8. Somebody this morning said 14 that they required. This value actually does go up to 128. So you could force somebody to have a 128-character password. Then force periodic password changes days. You could force them to change it every day. So every day you log on, you have to change your new password to something new. And it has to be unique, because the very next checkbox is a unique password. No, not very likely. 5, 6 characters is usually good enough. and then changing your password maybe every 6 months, maybe every 3 months, something that's going to be of value. Yeah, think about what's practical for your users and for your environment. Realizing that the more you change the password does not necessarily equate to more security, because then people make silly passwords or don't do very good passwords, or they write them down, or they use the sequences or something like that. So come up with a good policy for your passwords. Requiring a unique password is a good idea, so people don't just switch between them. Cat, dog, cat, dog, cat, dog. And so this does require a unique password. There's ability for using Grace logins. What a Grace login is your password expired and you need to change it. I'm not quite ready to change it. I'm busy. I can't think straight. Give me some time to think about this. Then they say, okay, I'll give you five more chances. I'll give you 6 total chances, 5 more to change it. So as you log in, it just keeps reminding you, you have 4, 3, 2. Yes?
Seems like something we'd want to change a lot more at the, management level, for all users at the same time, not on a fine-grained individual user basis. We're going to cover how to do that later on.
Kind of, yes. Yes. About you're saying that you want to be able to set this at one level and just sort of have it multiple users? Yes.
Individual users is going to be really interesting.
Yes. Yes. And that's what we're doing today. We are doing tedious today. Okay? Tedious is what we start with to appreciate any non-tedious advantages that we can take advantage of. So yes, this will be tedious. But we have 6 Grace logins. This is also where we set the password. It's a link on the bottom. It's not even a button. It'd be kind of nice if it was a button. But this is where we would set the password for the person. So we don't have to go through all these buttons. We can just go to the user, password restrictions, set the password. And there's other ways of doing it too, but that's one. So once we like these settings, we look at this, and we click Apply. If you notice, whenever you set a password, if you change a user's password, it's automatically expired. That's so that when the person logs in, they're forced to change the password. Now, you could change it. Well, I'll give them a couple days, with this old password. By default, it expires right away so that when they log in, they're changing it. You should never know users' passwords. You can access the data some other way. You don't need their password to do it. If you wanted to log in, then log in, but don't keep track of people's passwords. Since I'm logged into the web browser right now, it doesn't make any difference of what I do on the client. So in fact, I'm going to log back in as Aaron Rogers, since this is who I'm playing with, Aaron Rogers. And it says you're already logged in as Mike McCarthy. Are you sure? Yes, I am. And then the message comes up. The password for A. Rogers has expired. You have 5 Grace logins. Do you want to change your password? No. And it says, okay, fine. Enter. Then 4 and 3 and then 2 and then 1. And then it says you have no Grace logins remaining. You've got to change it now. Okay, going through the rest of these restrictions. I also have login restrictions. So this just deals with the password. This deals with where you can log in. No, I should clarify that. If you can log in, the very first checkbox is account disabled. Yes? No, this does not have a complexity setting built into it by default. There are other settings that you can apply to it, a lot of third-party stuff. But no, this is it. So you get a length, and you get a password expire and, reset after 30 days or whatever. It does not have a complexity policy built into it. Excellent question. Something that you sort of expect to be there, and it's just not here. Login restrictions. If you're allowed to log in, I can disable your account. This could be for all kinds of reasons. One is you're out on long-term leave. You're on maternity leave. So you're going to be gone for 12 weeks or 16 weeks or whatever. I can disable your account. That way, even if somebody has your password, they still can't get in, or they know that they have 10 weeks to try to hack in and eventually, get your password. It doesn't make a difference. They'll never get in. The account is disabled. This is also the best way of dealing with people that leave the company, whether voluntarily or involuntarily. It's amazing how many people that leave a company come back. Even have farewell parties or, big elaborate leaving things, and all of a sudden they're back the next week. It's a lot easier just to uncheck the box when they come back than to recreate them as a user. If they leave on not so friendly terms, there might be an occasion that they also come back because of legal issues or something, but also you might need to keep track of information. As soon as you delete the person's account, all of their records and references also disappear. So if you need to keep track of A. Rogers and what files were touched or accessed or whatever, or deleted, you need to keep the account around. And it's just good to keep it. It's no big deal. Just disable the account and let it sit there for 2 months, 3 months, or whatever. It's really not taking up any resources, just another entry in a big database. Here you have an expiration date. This is great for temporaries. I know that I'm hiring this temp through, the end of the year. So instead of trying to remember that and putting it in my calendar and doing it, I can just say at 5 o'clock on December 31st, that's when that account expires. The account stays there. It's just disabled, so it doesn't just disappear. And all of a sudden, they come back, hey, I'm coming back January 2nd after New Year's. No, they extended my contract. Didn't they tell you? No, they didn't. Okay, well, it's a simple switch of a couple fields here, and now they extend it for another time. Questions on that? Okay. And last option we have under limiting our logon is the concurrent connections. How many different places can you log in at the same time? This can be valuable in a couple of regards. One is for licensing. If, in fact, you have 25 users and you have a 25 user license, you want everybody to log in once. If all of a sudden somebody logs in twice or 3 times or 4 times, that means that the 3 people can't log in. That's usually not the case, but it can get down to that. Usually your licensing is done way higher and much more broad than that. It can be valuable for technicians, though. If you have a lot of PC techs running around, they're logging in, and all of a sudden they go to the next station and go ahead and log in to make changes, and they can't because it says you're already logged in somewhere. That's a really good clue that you didn't log out of the last workstation. And so you have to go back and figure out where you were and log yourself out. It can be useful for like administrative accounts, like your admin account for your server or maybe your president for your company, because as long as that computer is logged in as that user, no one else can log in as that user anywhere else. So you know you have that account secured. Have a dedicated machine, admin account logged on, no one else can log in as admin from anywhere else. You need to log in somewhere else, log out of that machine, then log as a different one. So it could be valuable that way. Usually not, but could be valuable. Time restrictions deal with when you can log in, and it's by time of the day. We hold on the Shift key and click to do the ranges. As we're clicking, we're adding time restrictions. If I want to remove time restrictions, I click the button underneath here, Remove Time Restrictions. So if I wanted to, add Sunday all day as time restriction, this gets a little tricky once in a while. Holding on the Shift key, oh, now it's working well. I had a lot of troubles with my mouse this morning. And now you can see that you're not allowed to log in on Sundays. Say I don't want to log in on Saturdays and at nights. So you work 9 to 4, and that's the only times you can log in. I don't want you working over lunch, so I can clear out lunch. Mondays are hard to come in, so we'll just start a little bit later maybe. Oh, that messed up. So the mouse gets a little weird. You can click individually on individual squares. and you can turn them on. To turn them off, you click remove the restrictions. Oh, I missed it. Remove the restrictions, and then add the restrictions. Yes?
Sorry, but will this kick people off if they're logged on during restricted time? Like, say, this kind of like Aaron. If Aaron stays logged on after 4, does it kick him off, or does it just block any new attempts to log in?
I knew this, and I can't remember. We will test it. That's a really obvious question, and the question is whether the available login restrictions deal with just new attempts for logons, or if they actually get logged off. And I know this, and I forgot it. I will definitely have to check this and try that. I don't even want to say either way because I don't remember. Where we run into issues is that we set time restrictions on users, like during class, and then we can't log in as them. So you definitely can't log in during those times. So be careful of what you're doing. Don't set times that we actually need to be using it for class. Or also you try to work at home. You take it home, and it's like on a Friday night. It's like, why can't I log in as this person? Like, oh yeah, time restrictions. Especially don't do it to admin. If you do it to admin, then you can't even go in and change it. I guess you could change your server time if you knew how to do it. That'd be tricky. Okay, anyway, so that's how you do it. You do it by time restrictions. So these are the times that you can log in. You can also have address restrictions. Address restrictions are saying which computers can you log in from. So if I look right now, ipconfig, I am at 230.131. So I add the device, and it's 192.168.230.131. You can add multiple devices. So say that I want to be able to log on from this computer and that computer. This is great, again, for administration or possibly high-level administration with a network administrator. This is the network admin PC. And this is the only place that you can log in as admin. Again, if you have an admin account and the password gets out, even with that information, they can't get in. So they have to log in from the computer with that IP address. Doesn't work great for the typical user in the typical environment because DHCP, which I really truly think is a great opportunity to get your coworkers to mingle and get to know each other. So every Monday morning when they come in, they have to find their computer that they get to log in from, and they get to, hey, is that Mike? Oh, and you get a new cubicle mate every day. And, sort of just, that'd be really, really social activity, I think. Spend the first hour talking and getting to know where you're supposed to work that day. This is where you have static addresses. Again, this is my administration workstation. And then I, further set it up that I can log on from one computer at a time. So you can lock it down pretty tightly. There are other ways of locking down as well. And I don't know. I have to check this out. Yeah. Well, it says Ethernet, the block ID. I thought one of those was a MAC address, so you're actually locked into that specific MAC network card. But we don't use this very often, but it is there. Account balance isn't under OSI. Did you too? I saw OSI and then hex address, OSI network address. Specify the hexadecimal digit of the field represents. Not very useful documentation. IP address. Enter the IP address. SLDC. Enter the SDLC address. Anyway, but the IP address at least can be valuable and researching it further. Account balance is set to allow unlimited credit. You can put balances on there. and then balances are taken off automatically by usage and space and different configuration things. I've actually never used this, so for all the years that I worked with it, I've never used account balances. And then intruder lockout is a one-way toggle switch. This is not where you set intruder detection. This is only where you clear it. So if a person attempts multiple times to log in incorrectly, it's going to lock their account. You come in here and you uncheck it. You cannot check it. You can only uncheck it. While it's in here, it tells you the last login intruder attempts. There were 3 or 2 or whatever. Login intruder reset, that's when that timer would be reset, and then who did it? What's the address of that device that tried to do it incorrectly? We will be talking about intruder detection next week when we implement it. It's not implemented yet, and then we'll see how that all functions. So as again, under user objects, we have general identification. Under environment, the most important thing is your home directory. We have group membership and login script, and then postal address, which we really don't use. Restrictions, we do a lot. We have password restrictions, dealing with everything with the password length and time to change it, grace logins. If we can log in, when we can log in, from where we can log in, and if someone tried to log in incorrectly. So lots and lots of restrictions under there. Yes, if you had to do this for every user, every time you set them up, it'd be extremely tedious. So I want you practicing this with several users. Just create lots of people. Don't create Gropa thinking you're getting ahead, though. I don't want you doing that. Create 5, 6 people or something just to practice with it. We will be deleting them, just to let you know. So don't get overly attached to your creations of the week. On the other hand, don't not do it thinking that you're going to delete it. So we will be, just practicing more and doing it differently next time. We're going to be using, We're going to be using templates, working with groups and roles and intruder detection. And so we're working a lot with the user still in those aspects. Questions or comments? Okay, not having any other questions, the rest of the day is yours to work and practice and play and learn and experiment. Take the learning opportunity time while I'm here to help you.